I now give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. ARRMANATHA NASIR, Vice Chair of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People.
Madam President, on behalf of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People, at the outset, I would like to congratulate Norway for its able presidency of the Security Council this month. We are grateful this meeting is taking place at ministerial level. Madam President, once more, we would like to call to the attention of this Council on the critical situation of the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, and highlight the need for a swift and just resolution on the question of Palestine on the basis of international law and relevant UN resolution. On 7th December, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, briefed our committee on the human rights situation in the OPT, describing it as disastrous with severe violations, including killings, arbitrary detention, including of children, restriction to fundamental freedom, and discrimination affecting millions of Palestinians. On 10th November, human rights experts expressed alarm at the rising incidents of violence by Israeli settlers towards Palestinians in the OPT, alongside rising tension related to ongoing Israeli settlement expansion in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, threatening the contiguity and viability of the Palestinian State. The committee remains concerned at the resulting increase in the number of injuries and fatalities, with 6 Palestinians reportedly killed and 1,138 others injured between 19th October 2021 and 14 January 2022. Reports that new rules of engagement for Israeli security forces regarding the use of live ammunition in the West Bank could lead to an even larger number of injuries and fatalities among Palestinian civilians are deeply disturbing. Palestinian families are facing expulsion from homes they have lived in for decades and across generations in the Sheikh Jarrah and the Silwan neighborhood of occupied East Jerusalem. According to OCHA, since October 2021, 232 Palestinian-owned homes and structures have been demolished across the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, displacing 283 persons and affecting 5,329 women, children, and men. The committee called on Israel to respect the obligation under international humanitarian law and international human rights law, and to cease forthwith the demolition and seizure of Palestinian property throughout the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Madam President, the economic situation in the state of Palestine remains also of grave concern. In November 2021, the UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East peace process highlighted the urgency to address the continuing economic and fiscal crisis faced by the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian people. For this reason, the committee supports the 510 million humanitarian response plan launched by the humanitarian coordinator for the occupied Palestinian territory, Lynn Hastings, to support 1.6 million of the most vulnerable people in Gaza and the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, during 2022. At the November 2021 Advisory Commission meeting, UNRWA Commissioner General Philip Lazzarini also highlighted the decline of available resources since 2013, despite growing humanitarian needs of the Palestinian refugee. The welcome return of the United States as a partner and donor to the agency, however, has been offset by a reduction of funding from other large donors and the absence of new funding sources. The committee reiterates its call to the international community to ensure sufficient and reliable funding for the agency to deliver its crucial services to over 5.8 million Palestinian refugees and to maintain its vital contribution to regional stability. Madam President, Palestinians living in Gaza needs urgent humanitarian relief, and economic assistance, allowing them to have dignified life and a sustainable future. Needs remain acute following the deadly escalation in the Strip last May, as hundreds of families remain displaced and thousands of homes and structures require reconstruction and repair. Let me reiterate, however, that Gaza requires not only economic support for reconstruction, but also a complete lifting of the illegal Israeli blockade in line with USC Resolution 1860 and the return of the legitimate Palestinian government to Gaza. Gaza remains an integral part of the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967 and must be a part of an independent, sovereign Palestinian state. Ultimately, as much as we agree with the need to focus on improving the livelihood of Palestinians, the committee believes that this cannot genuinely happen without a political horizon ensuring justice and rights, including self-determination for the Palestinian people, the definitive and the occupation and the achievement of the independent state of Palestine state. Madam President, Palestinian civil society organizations continue to face restriction to their freedom of expression, assembly, and association. The Bureau of the Committee joined the Secretary General, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the European Union, and other international human rights organizations in publicly expressing deep concern at Israel's decision of 22nd October designating 6 human rights and humanitarian Palestinian civil society organizations as terrorist entities. Some of these organizations are long-standing reliable partner of the committee, as well as the United Nations, in advocating for the protection and the promotion of human rights of the Palestinian people. On 7th December, the committee organized an event where representatives from Palestinian, Israeli, and Israel civil society called on member states to hold Israel accountable for its action and to continue giving a platform to the voices and that the government of Israel is trying to suppress. To date, the Israeli authorities have not made public substantial evidence that these 6 Palestinian organizations, evidence against these 6 Palestinian organizations. We reiterate that CSO must be allowed to work unhindered in the implementation of their mandate. Madam President, the committee calls on implementation of the provision contained in Resolution 2334, as well as all UN resolutions and internationally agreed parameters to justify and sustainably resolve the question of Palestine. We are grateful to Norway for this ministerial meeting and further hope that a ministerial meeting of the Middle East Quartet will soon relaunch the peace process. The current course must be diverted and redressed with delay towards ending the Israeli occupation that began in 1967, implementing a just solution based on international law and relevant United Nations resolution that ensures 2-state Israel and Palestine live side by side in peace and security along the pre-1967 line and with Jerusalem as the capital of the Palestinian state. The committee stands ready to assist and garner the support needed to advance the process. I thank you, Madam President.